Hello everybody. It's been some time since Tim and I sent a little video update about what's happening with the Place of Springs. Thank you so much to those of you who've sent text messages and emails to check in with us about how things are going and how you can be praying. Although we have been quiet, we do very much appreciate your ongoing prayers, and we need them. And this little video update is really to help you in knowing how to pray and how to participate in where things stand at the moment. Part of the quietness really has been really kind of experiencing a sense of tension between knowing that we need to communicate clearly and with vision and faith, and also sensing internally an invitation to be listening really deeply to what it is that God might be about in this stretch of the journey, whether in the things that are actually happening or internally within ourselves. So in this video, I thought I would just let you know the facts of how things stand, the things that we are listening to as we're prayerful with God, and then the sense of vision and faith that we continue to have. So the facts are that the property that we've had our eye on over these several months is still on the market. We have raised about just less than 50% of what we need to finance that property. And we had thought that that was all that we needed to fundraise for, because we had expected to finance the remaining 50% through a mortgage. As you probably know, that mortgage was denied, but not only that, it seems extremely unlikely that we will be able to fund the remaining amount through a typical mortgage. So that's the facts of where things stand. The house is still available. God's provided abundantly, and we now need to raise an additional £150,000 if we're to pursue a property of this size in this area. So often when things don't happen in the way that we think or in the time that we think, there's an invitation from God there to pay attention perhaps a bit more closely. And so that's what we've been trying to do. We've been paying attention to what are the doors that God might be inviting us to push. What are the things that God might be saying no to, not this way? Could it be that God continues to invite us to trust him for a property, but it's not this particular property and we're to look for another one? This isn't so much a lack of certainty about what God is doing. It's more a sense of pressing in for the nuances of what God is doing and not wanting to make any assumptions. So with that, there's also this desire to listen deeply to what God might be doing inside of us, knowing that whatever God does in us through this experience will really be part of forming the foundation for this future ministry. And so one of the things that we've sensed is that this desire to really be surrendered through this experience, surrendering our own assumptions, our own preconceived ideas, our own sense of how this needs to happen, and really trusting that God has made a promise, that he is leading us into a new season of ministry, that does include a property, and for the rest we're listening carefully, not wanting to make any assumptions. However, so that's talked about the facts, that's talked about the listening, the vision and the faith, the sense of clarity around vision and faith, I would say is steady. my battery just told me it was dying. Which is to say that we believe that God is continuing to invite us to pursue areas of ministry around debriefing, leadership development, spiritual direction, and retreats of various kinds, including in the mountains. And we continue to do those things in the limited way that we can with the property that we have. So in the next few weeks, we have people coming to stay, individuals at different times, coming from difficult situations for a time of debriefing, coming at a point of transition in their ministry for a retreat, a spiritual retreat. And we continue to do these things in the capacity that we can, trusting that God has been speaking to us about expanding our capacity to offer these things. So the vision and the belief that God is in that is the same as we have been communicating to you from the beginning. One of the things that's been very much on my mind over recent days is the story of Abraham and Sarah. They were not the only people in the Bible who received a promise from God and then had to wait much longer than expected for the fulfillment of that promise. And they're not the only people who, in the midst of that waiting, felt that perhaps it would be better if they took things into their own hands. So we know the story. They had been promised family and descendants, and had still not conceived. And somewhere in the waiting, Sarah said to Abraham, well, how about you have a child through Hagar, our servant, and maybe that's how the promise will be fulfilled. And we know some of the consequences to that decision. And of course, this is something that is very much in keeping with our natures. We don't like to wait, and we are pretty certain that we have a way to make things happen if only God would leave it to us. We find ourselves very much in that space of continuing to feel this desire to participate in what God is about here, to press into it, to pursue it, but not to try to make it happen in our way or in our timing. And so that's where the waiting and the listening really comes in, and that's where we are. So in the meantime, you can continue to pray for some of the things that I've mentioned, for us to have steadfast hearts in the midst of the waiting, for God to be clear with us how he is continuing to lead us, and of course for the extra provision that we had anticipated would be funded through a mortgage, which now will not be. Of course, if you want to participate in being part of the answer to those prayers through giving, then please do get in touch. But truly we appreciate the fact that you are continuing to be with us on this journey that's working out in a different way than we thought it would, and yet we are absolutely confident in God and his leading and his goodness and his faithfulness. So we continue to look forward to sharing the end of the story with you. And in the meantime, I'm hoping that this video will help you to know how to pray. Thank you.